Cassiel Devereaux is a poised and calculating Omega CEO of Devereaux Technologies, a luxury tech firm he built from the ground up after years of proving himself in an alpha-dominated industry. Known for his cold demeanor and sharp business instincts. But currently, Cassiel Devereaux was trying not to cry because his 3-year-old son had just smeared peanut butter on a $5,000 couch and was now attempting to climb it with peanut butter-covered fingers. "Leo," Cassiel said, voice tight as he scooped Leo into his arms, "Darling, I love you. But if you destroy one more designer thing, we're moving into a cave." Leo just giggled. Cassiel sighed, already regretting firing the last nanny, but the woman had flirted with him during his heat, and that was a hard no. He'd made his rules clear. 1. No flirting. 2. No office. It was simple, but Leo was growing fast. He was turning 4 in a few months, and Cassiel was running out of energy. He stepped over a juice spill and grabbed his phone. "Call Nanny, the company," he told the AI system, "and tell them it's urgent." The next morning, Cassiel opened the door in a silk robe, expecting a middle-aged Omega or, at worst, Legado with 0 cent. What stood there instead was an alpha, tall, broad, tan-skinned, dusted with tattoos just barely visible under a black t-shirt, piercing gray eyes, and a voice that was way too calm. "Mr. Devereaux, I'm Riven Thorne, your nanny." Cassiel froze. "You're what?" Riven tilted his head, like he was the one surprised. "The agency said you needed immediate help. I specified no office." Apparently, they didn't care. Cassiel narrowed his eyes. Riven smiled, just slightly. "Should I leave?" Just then Leo walked in, spotted the stranger, and squealed, "Big man," before launching into his arms. Cassiel blinked. Leo never took liking to people that fast. Riven caught the kid effortlessly and gave Cassiel a look. Cassiel exhaled through his nose. "Fine, 1-day trial. And don't get any ideas." Riven's grin widened just enough to make Cassiel's pulse spike. "Wouldn't dream of it, sir." Later on that day, the penthouse was unusually quiet. Cassiel had been glued to his office desk since sunrise, a half-eaten croissant abandoned beside his laptop, and for unanswered messages blinking on his screen. Somewhere in the background, Leo's laughter echoed through the baby monitor. Riven had been keeping the toddler entertained for hours now, like it was nothing. Like he hadn't just been dropped into the home of a notoriously difficult Omega with strict rules and a son who hated everyone. Cassiel didn't trust it. There was a knock on his office door. Before the door cracked open, Riven leaned in, holding a mug. "Thought you might want coffee," he said simply. Cassiel didn't even look up. "That's not in your job description." A pause. Neither was teaching Leo how to say no in 5 languages, but we're rolling with it. Cassiel glanced at him now, narrowing his eyes. "Do you always talk back to your employers? Only the ones who look like they haven't blinked in 3 hours. Riven crossed the room, set the mug down beside the laptop with annoying confidence, and turned to leave. Cassiel blinked at the cup like it had offended him personally. He would not appreciate it, and he definitely would not think about how warm the apartment had felt all morning, with a certain alpha humming lullabies from the nursery. It had been days now, and Cassiel had barely slept. Between the endless boardroom meetings, brand partnership calls, and 3 different crises at his company, he'd almost forgotten what silence sounded like. He hated leaving Leo for the whole day, but sometimes it couldn't be helped. He just got to his penthouse from the company, and as the elevator doors opened into the penthouse, Cassiel instinctively called out, "Leo." No answer. Then he heard splashing and laughter coming from the rooftop. He moved toward the rooftop terrace, and buttoning his jacket as he stepped outside, and froze. In the center of the pool was his son, floating in a donut-shaped tube with Riven holding him steady, shirtless. Cassiel's brain short-circuited for a full 3 seconds. Riven was built like someone sculpted out of heat and bad decisions. Tan skin, ABS for days, damp hair slicked back, and a smile that made Cassiel annoyed for it no reason at all. "Is there a reason you're naked in my pool?" Cassiel asked flatly, arms crossing. Riven looked up, amused. "Technically not naked." "And your son begged to swim." "I wasn't gonna say no. I didn't authorize pool time. I didn't realize we were on a military schedule." Cassiel's glare sharpened. Just then, Leo squealed and reached out to his dad. "Dad, come swim." "No." Cassiel said immediately. I have work. But Leo's little hands were already splashing wildly, grinning like a tiny maniac. Come in. Cassiel hesitated. Riven gave a lazy smirk. Come on, you look like you could use a break. That's when Leo let out a battle cry and flung water with both hands, soaking Cassiel's trousers. Leo, Cassiel snapped, stepping back too fast, and slipped right into the pool, fully dressed. Leo cheered and Riven laughed. Cassiel surfaced, sputtering and furious. I hate all of you, he growled. Riven reached out, grinning. You look good wet, boss. Cassiel stared at him in stunned silence, then said, one more comment like that and I'm docking your pay. Riven didn't stop smiling, and Cassiel didn't leave the pool. Moments later, Cassiel hated to admit it, but the pool had been fun. Leo had clung to him like a koala the whole time, squealing and splashing. And for once, Cassiel hadn't been thinking about deadlines or shareholders or whether he was a terrible parent. Just the water, and Riven's infuriating smile across the pool, eyes catching his like he knew exactly what he was doing. Cassiel had escaped after 30 minutes, pretending to be annoyed. But deep down, he felt lighter than he had in weeks. After drying off and changing into something comfortable, he found Riven in the kitchen, humming as he cut up strawberries for Leo's snack. The alpha glanced up when Cassiel walked in, casual but hopeful. Hey, Riven said, can I ask something? Cassiel raised a brow. If it's about pool privileges, the answer is no. Riven gave a lazy smirk. Not that, just. I've been doing a 2-hour commute each way. I'm up before dawn to get here, and by the time I leave, Leo's already asleep. I was thinking it might be better for everyone if I just stayed here, as a live-in nanny. Cassiel's body went rigid. Live-in? Yeah, temporarily. I could take one of the guest rooms. You'd save on transport. Leo gets more consistency. And I could be here full-time, early or late, whenever you need. No, Cassiel said immediately. This isn't that kind of arrangement. But, I said no. Cassiel cut him off. Before Riven could argue, a small voice interrupted. I want Riven to stay. They both turned. Leo stood in the hallway, curls still damp from the pool, dragging his favorite plush bunny by one ear. I like when Riven's here. He makes pancakes with faces, Leo said sleepily. Cassiel blinked, totally thrown. Riven gave him a raised eyebrow look. Kid's got taste. Cassiel's jaw worked silently for a second. Leo, sweetheart, it's not that simple. But I want him to stay, Leo insisted, his little face scrunching up like he was about to cry. Cassiel looked from Leo's pout to Riven's hopeful, maddeningly patient expression ... and sighed. Fine, he muttered. 1 week. You'll stay in the guest room. No flirting. And no shirtless walks through the hallway. Riven looked way too satisfied. I'll keep the shirt on. No promises about the flirting. Cassiel turned away before Riven could see the flush creeping up his neck. It was Riven's move-in day. Cassiel told himself he didn't care. He had a meeting. 3, actually. He was reviewing reports when the elevator dinged in the penthouse, and Riven walked in, carrying just one black duffel bag slung over his shoulder like this wasn't a luxury Manhattan penthouse but some casual sleepover. Cassiel didn't get up from the dining table. He watched from the corner of his eye as Riven walked off his boots, dressed in a fitted black tee and sweatpants low on his hips. Guest rooms down the hall, Cassiel said flatly, not looking up from his tablet. Got it, Riven said with a grin, like he knew Cassiel was totally watching. Leo came running in from the playroom. Riven, is that your bag? Yup. I'm staying for the week, remember? Leo clapped, bouncing. Can I help you unpack? Riven ruffled his curls. Only if you promise not to steal my socks. Cassiel made a noise that might have been a scoff, or a snort. Don't break anything, he muttered, flicking to the next spreadsheet as Riven and Leo disappeared down the hall. And if Cassiel drifted toward the balcony later, just to glance in as Riven unpacked with Leo clinging to his leg. Well, no one needed to know that. Hours later, it was late at night. Cassiel didn't bother turning on the lights as he walked to the kitchen. He knew the penthouse by heart. He padded across the cool tile floor in silence, dressed in nothing but a pair of soft gray sleep shorts that hung dangerously low on his hips, and a loosely draped robe slid off one shoulder. He was just reaching for a glass when he heard a quiet shuffle. Cassiel turned and stiffened. Riven stood near the counter, wearing nothing but black joggers and a faintly stunned expression, eyes locked on him. Cassiel tilted his head. See something interesting. Riven blinked, startled like he'd been caught red-handed. No, no. I was just getting water. His voice cracked slightly. Cassiel arched a brow. Right. Riven scratched the back of his neck, clearly flustered. I haven't seen you in this kind of outfit before. Cassiel stepped past him toward the fridge, barely glancing his way. And yet, you have no issue walking around shirtless in the middle of the day. That's different, is it? Riven didn't answer. His eyes dropped again to fast, and flicked away even faster. Cassiel smirked slightly, closing the fridge. He picked up his water and walked past Riven without another word. It had been a week, 7 days of lively mornings and calm evenings. It was like Riven had always belonged in the home. Cooking simple meals, playing Lego with Leo, getting the little alpha Leo to bed with minimal tantrums. Cassiel, for once, had slept through the night. He hated how easy it all felt, and hated even more how much he didn't hate it. That evening, Leo begged for movie night on the living room couch. Blankets, popcorn, pillows everywhere. Riven was already flopped on one end. Cassiel sat stiffly on the opposite side, a tablet still in his hand as if he might do work. Leo sprawled in the middle. For 20 minutes, it was peaceful, just the glow of the screen and Leo's giggles. Until Leo started squirming. I'm cold, he whined. Cassiel didn't look up, then used the blanket. I'm still cold. He sat up, looked at Riven, then Cassiel, and with the most serious little face said, Okay daddy, come sit here. Before Cassiel could argue, Leo climbed into Riven's lap, dragging the blanket with him and completely occupying that side. Cassiel blinked. Leo, no, you sit next to Riven now. I want to be in the middle of the cuddles. Cassiel frowned. There are no cuddles. Riven snorted under his breath, but Leo pouted, and Cassiel sighed. Wordlessly, he shifted closer, settling stiffly beside Riven with barely an inch of space between them. The movie played on. Then a few minutes later, Leo shifted again, drifting into sleep. They sat in silence for a moment. The blanket was warm. Riven was right there, shoulder brushing against Cassiel's, their legs pressed together now. And Cassiel was suddenly aware of the heat radiating off the alpha beside him. He didn't move. Neither did Riven. But Riven's arm was stretched behind the couch now, and Cassiel could feel the weight of it, not touching him, but close, way too close. He didn't say a word. Just shifted slightly closer, pretending he needed a better angle of the screen. Their thighs brushed. Neither of them moved away. Almost an hour later, the movie ended. They carried Leo together, Cassiel with one arm under Leo's legs, Riven supporting his back. Leo mumbled sleepily as they walked into his room. Cassiel laid him down gently while Riven fixed the covers. But as Cassiel reached for the blanket, Leo stirred, letting out a tiny whine. No, I'm cold. You'll be fine, Cassiel said softly, covering him. But Leo frowned, eyes still closed, his little voice slurring with sleep. No, not the blanket. I want cuddles. Cassiel froze. Leo, I want cuddles, he whispered again. With both of you. Riven looked over, startled but clearly trying not to laugh. Cassiel narrowed his eyes. He's not even awake. Riven raised a brow. He asked nicely. It's manipulative. He's 3. Cassiel hesitated. His son's small hand reached blindly for the air between them. Cassiel sighed like the world was ending. Just for a minute. They both sat on either side of the bed. Cassiel laid stiffly at the edge of the bed, while Riven laid comfortably. Leo immediately latched onto Riven's arm like a koala, then reached out sleepily for Cassiel. Cassiel allowed the small hand to rest on his chest. Love you, Leo mumbled. Cuddles nice. Cassiel looked down him, his expression melting. They sat like that for a long while. The night was quiet. The city lights flickered outside the window. Leo finally stopped moving, and neither of them spoke. It was another morning. The smell of coffee filled the kitchen before the sun had even fully risen. Cassiel stood by the counter, tapping through emails on his tablet with practiced calm. The cool morning air drifted in from the balcony door he'd left cracked open. Behind him, Riven entered the kitchen, hair still a little messy from sleep. Morning. Cassiel didn't look up. You snore. I do not. You do quietly. But it's there. Riven snorted, Going for the coffee. Guess I'll try to be a more elegant roommate. Cassiel's fingers paused over the screen. He turned slowly, leaning one hand against the counter. I've been thinking, he said. This arrangement. You staying here. Riven straightened, mug halfway to his lips. Cassiel continued. It's more convenient. Leo sleeps better. The mornings are calmer. I can work longer hours without worrying. He looked up from the tablet, meeting Riven's eyes. You can stay. Riven blinked. Seriously, don't make me repeat myself. For a second, Riven looked like he might smile, but Cassiel raised a hand. With rules. Riven raised a brow. Of course. Cassiel began ticking them off like a list. No entering my bedroom without permission. No cooking with curry when I have meetings the next day. And under no circumstances are you to entertain Leo with glitter crafts again. Riven laughed. That was one time. I'm still finding it in my socks. Cassiel crossed his arms. And lastly, this is a professional arrangement. You're here as Leo's nanny, not anything else. Riven's smirk twitched, but he didn't argue. Got it. Professional. Cassiel gave a curt nod and turned back to his tablet. Riven watched him for a second longer, then sipped his coffee with a small grin. You're welcome, by the way. Cassiel looked over. For what? Riven gestured to the kitchen. All this peace and quiet. Cassiel gave him a flat look. You mean Leo's still asleep, and no glitter in sight? Exactly. Cassiel hid the smallest of smirks and returned to his screen. Don't ruin it. It had been 2 days after that day, and for 2 days, Cassiel hadn't left his room. No breakfast with Leo. No reminders or phone calls from him to Riven about Leo or his schedule. Just silence behind a locked door. Leo had been asking for him since yesterday. By now, the little boy was curled on the couch, sulking, his arms crossed, eyes puffy. I want daddy, he mumbled again, voice cracking a little. Riven's patience finally snapped. He stood up from the sofa and ruffled Leo's hair. Let's go. Leo blinked. Where? To your dad. But we're not allowed in his room. Yeah, well, Riven muttered. He's not exactly winning Dad of the Year today. The door wasn't locked when they got there. That surprised him. He pushed it open slowly. The scent hit first. It was thick, heavy omega heat. It wrapped around Riven like a warm fog, sinking into his skin. It made his instincts twitch beneath the surface, but he kept himself grounded. He stood beside the door, not trusting himself to take another step inside the room. But Leo was already moving. Daddy. Cassiel jolted upright on the bed, flushed and dazed, his shirt clinging to his chest with sweat. His limbs looked heavy, like even sitting up took effort. What the hell, he rasped. Get him out of here. Now. Not until you explain, Riven said, voice flat. Cassiel's gaze snapped to his, shocked at the alpha tone he was using. Leo had already climbed into bed and hugged him. I missed you. Cassiel winced, hands trembling. Leo, I missed you, but Daddy's not feeling well. Riven crossed his arms. You left him? No note, no call. You don't get to pretend this is okay. I didn't leave him. I was trying to protect him, and I didn't have the energy to call. Cassiel hissed through his teeth. I'm in heat. And you didn't think to tell me that. Cassiel clenched his jaw. I didn't want you here. That stung. But Riven held his ground. Why? Cassiel looked away. Because the last nannies, except the recent one, were omegas. Or betas, it was safe. Leo could come in. They didn't react to me and I didn't react to them. Riven's stomach dropped. You isolated yourself, he said slowly. Because I'm in alpha. Cassiel's voice was tired. It's easier. For who? Riven snapped. Leo hasn't eaten properly in 2 days. He cried himself to sleep yesterday. Thinking you didn't want him? You think that's easier? Cassiel flinched. Leo had curled under his arm, cheek against his chest, already starting to drift off with a little sigh. I didn't mean to. But you did, Riven said quietly. And you need to be better. For a second, the room went still. Then Cassiel exhaled, shaky. I missed him too. Riven's expression softened. I'll take him when he's asleep. Cassiel didn't answer. He was staring down at Leo, one hand resting gently on his son's back. Riven still stood at the doorway. The scent in the room pulled at something deep in him, but he shoved it down. I broke a rule, he said. Cassiel met his eyes. I know, but he didn't ask him to leave. Leo's breathing had evened out. His little body curled into Cassiel's side. He looked content now. Cassiel didn't say anything. He just sat there against the pillows, hair a mess, and eyes half-lidded with exhaustion. He was just still. Riven still stood by the door. Cassiel's eyes flicked to him, then back down at his son. "You can stay. There." He pointed to an armchair in the corner. Riven stepped inside and sat on the armchair. His eyes stayed on Leo, but his attention was all Cassiel. The Omega hadn't applied scent blockers properly. The heat scent lingered, curling in the air like smoke. It was dangerous. Cassiel's fingers stroked Leo's back absently, then stilled when he caught Riven watching. "Stop staring," he murmured. Riven looked away. "Didn't mean to." Silence. "I've never seen you like this," Riven added after a moment. "You're always so sharp and guarded." Cassiel didn't answer, just shifted slightly, looking uncomfortable. "Is it always like this for you?" Riven asked. Cassiel nodded slowly. "Every time, and I hate it." "Why?" Cassiel looked at him, and for once, there was no cold edge. "Because it reminds me that no matter how powerful I am outside these walls, in here, I'm something else. Something weaker. Something everyone thinks they can take advantage of." Riven's throat tightened. He didn't say anything. He just sat with him, until Cassiel's eyes closed, and he dozed off. The next hour passed in silence. Riven stayed in the chair. He wasn't sure why. He should have left, but he didn't. It wasn't just the heat scent anymore. It was the way Cassiel looked asleep, and guarded, lips slightly parted, hair falling across his cheek. Riven hadn't realized how much effort the man put into keeping himself untouchable until all the walls were down. Leo stirred awake first. Cassiel woke up, still sleepy. "Leo, I'm cold," the boy mumbled. Cassiel reached for the blanket and pulled it up again, but Leo only whined louder and turned his face into Cassiel's chest. "Cuddles." Cassiel let out a soft, tired huff. "You are cuddling me." "With both?" Leo mumbled, tiny fingers reaching blindly toward Riven's direction. Cassiel stiffened. Why does he keep wanting to cuddle with both of them? Riven stood. "I'll take him now." "No, wait." Cassiel moved, trying to reposition Leo, and in the moment of shifting, his fingers brushed over Riven's wrist. Just a second, but it was enough. Cassiel's scent flared hard and sudden. It wasn't just heat, it was need, raw, involuntary, and intense. Riven froze. Cassiel yanked his hand back like he'd been burned, eyes wide, his mouth parting in stunned horror. "I didn't mean." "I know," Riven said quickly, his voice lower now, rough around the edges. "It's okay." But neither of them moved. Leo had already dozed off again, completely unaware of the electric charge humming between the two adults. Cassiel swallowed hard, not meeting his eyes. "Just take him, please." Riven nodded, stepping closer. As he lifted Leo gently into his arms, Cassiel's scent clung to his skin, and neither of them said a word as he walked out. The next day, Cassiel didn't come down for breakfast, or lunch, or dinner, but he did FaceTime Leo. And at night, when the house was quiet and Riven was curled on his bed, pretending not to notice the need in his spine from the lingering heat scent in the air, Leo's door creaked open. Small footsteps padded across the floor and stopped at his room. "Riven." Riven turned around, sitting up. "What's up, buddy?" Leo rubbed his eyes sleepily. "Daddy's door is open. He told me I could come see him tonight." Riven blinked. "He did." Leo nodded seriously. "He said only me, not you." That part shouldn't have stung, but it did. Still, Riven nodded. "Okay, go on then." Leo padded back down the hallway, his blanket dragging behind him. Inside the room, Cassiel was sitting up in bed. His face looked flushed, but his expression was calm. Leo crawled into bed beside him instantly, sighing as he curled up close. "You feeling better, Daddy?" Cassiel brushed fingers through his son's hair. "A little. You smell like flowers." Cassiel chuckled under his breath. "It's the diffuser. You like it?" Leo nodded. "Can Riven smell it too?" Cassiel hesitated. "I'm sure he can." "Why can't he come in?" Cassiel's jaw tightened. "Because sometimes Omegas need space, and sometimes that space keeps them and others safe." Leo tilted his head. "Riven wouldn't hurt you." Cassiel looked away. "No, I don't think he would." They lay in silence for a moment, breathing steady. "Do you like Riven?" Leo asked, voice soft and curious. "That's complicated. Is it because you're sick And he's an alpha. Cassiel swallowed. Something like that. Leo blinked sleepily. He makes me happy. And he makes you different, softer? I think that's good. Cassiel didn't reply, just stared at the ceiling for a long time, long after Leo had drifted off beside him. Later that night, long past midnight, Cassiel stepped out of his room. His scent still lingered around him, but controlled. The suppressants had finally kicked in stronger. He padded down the stairs quietly, barefoot. He didn't expect Riven to still be awake, but he was now on the couch. After not being able to sleep, he was scrolling silently through his phone with tired eyes. When he saw Cassiel, he sat up immediately. "You're out." Cassiel nodded once. "Leo's asleep. You didn't have to come down. I needed water." Riven stood before he could stop himself. "I'll get it." Cassiel narrowed his eyes. "I can do it myself." "You've been avoiding me for 4 days," Riven said suddenly. "Let me do one thing." Riven walked past him into the kitchen, grabbing a glass and filling it from the fridge dispenser. He handed it over without meeting Cassiel's eyes. Cassiel took it, fingers brushing his again. Both of them froze. The heat was still there, but now like a low humming under Cassiel's skin. "Sorry," Cassiel muttered. "About earlier. About all of it." "I get it," Riven said, voice low. "You don't want to risk it. You don't want to need anyone." Cassiel flinched at the truth of it. "I wasn't just protecting me," Cassiel murmured. "I was protecting you too." Riven stepped closer. "And what if I don't want to be protected from you?" Cassiel's eyes widened, but he didn't move away. "Not this time." Riven stepped in closer, slow and hesitant, like he'd back off if Cassiel so much as flinched. But Cassiel didn't move. "You don't have to want me," Riven murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "But don't act like you don't feel it." Cassiel's fingers clenched tighter around the glass of water in his hand. "I'm not in control right now," he warned. "I'm not asking you to be." And with that, Riven leaned in, slow and gentle. Cassiel didn't stop him. The kiss was careful at first, like Riven was asking, not taking. Cassiel's breath hitched, and then he moved. The glass landed onto the counter, not breaking thankfully, as Cassiel's hand reached out, gripping the front of Riven's hoodie, pulling him in harder, lips parting. It wasn't just the heat. It was something heavier. It was need and loneliness. A craving buried under years of self-control. Riven kissed him like he wanted to prove he could handle every part of Cassiel, the messy, heated, guarded parts. Cassiel let him, just for a little while. Few hours later, sunlight spilled through the curtains. Cassiel stood in the kitchen with a mug of black coffee, the heat haze long gone from his body, the calm after the storm. He heard footsteps behind him, but he didn't turn. "Morning," Riven said. Cassiel sipped his coffee. "You sleep okay?" "Not really." Riven crossed his arms, watching him. "Can we talk about last night?" Cassiel set the mug down. "There's nothing to talk about." Riven's brow furrowed. "You kissed me. You kissed me. You pulled me in. You didn't stop me." They both stared at each other. Finally, Cassiel sighed, rubbing a hand down his face. "It was the heat. It messes with your head. I wasn't thinking straight." Riven blinked, stunned into silence. Cassiel didn't meet his eyes. It didn't mean anything. "It was a chemical reaction. That's all." "You're kidding me." Cassiel finally looked at him. "It's better if we pretend it didn't happen." Riven's jaw clenched. "Right. Because God forbid you let anyone in for more than 5 seconds. Because this isn't supposed to happen." Cassiel snapped, suddenly loud. "You're Leo's nanny. I can't afford to mess this up." Silence. The tension sat thick in the air. "Fine," Riven muttered. "Let's pretend." He turned around and walked off. Riven barely said 2 words at breakfast. He poured Leo's cereal, packed his lunch for school, and quietly stepped out of the room when Cassiel walked in, like nothing had ever happened. Cassiel tried to keep everything normal, but Leo noticed. Of course he did. Riven didn't sit with them like usual. Didn't tease Cassiel about drinking his coffee black or remind Leo to wear his jacket. He just disappeared, silent and stiff. "Daddy," Leo called. Cassiel blinked. "Yeah." "Did you and Riven fight?" Cassiel froze mid-sip. "What? No." "You're lying," Leo said seriously. Cassiel sighed. "Sometimes grown-ups just need Spacelio." Leo narrowed his eyes. "Well, space is stupid. I'm fixing it." Cassiel reached out, ruffling his hair. "You're not fixing anything. You're a kid." Leo grinned. Exactly. I'm cute. No one suspects me. Cassiel stared at him in shock, and Leo took that as encouragement. That evening, Riven found himself ambushed by Leo. Movie night, Leo squealed. Didn't we do that already this week? Leo huffed. It's a new rule. Movie night every other night. Cassiel walked in from his office, lifting a brow. A new rule, huh? Leo nodded. We're watching Wolf Paw Patrol. Then he pointed at the bean bags between them. And you're both sitting here. Cassiel and Riven stared at the narrow beanbags. There was maybe 3 inches of space between them. Leo beamed. No more grumpy adults. Cassiel muttered, You're so grounded. I'm too young to get grounded. Leo replied sassily. The next few days, despite Leo's schemes, were tense. Riven still kept his distance. No more waiting up at night for Cassiel to return from the office. He stayed professional and polite. Nothing more. And Cassiel hated how much he noticed the difference. One night, after Leo had gone to sleep, the guest room door was open, and Cassiel found Riven folding laundry alone in the guest room. Cassiel hovered in the hall, debating for a second before stepping in. Riven didn't look up. I didn't expect you to still be here, Cassiel said quietly. I work here, remember, Riven replied, calm but cold. Until you change your mind again. Cassiel flinched. Riven. What? He asked, folding another shirt. Do you want to remind me how I don't mean anything to you? That's not. You kissed me like you meant it, Riven said suddenly, cutting him off. And then you shoved me away like I was just some hormonal idiot trying to take advantage. Cassiel looked down at the floor. You know I'm not that kind of person, Riven added, voice softer now. So what is it, Cassiel? What are you so scared of? A long silence. Then quietly, Cassiel said, Leo's father was an alpha. Riven's expression shifted. He was charming, said all the right things. Told me he didn't care that I was an Omega. Told me he loved me. Cassiel's jaw tensed. He left the moment I got pregnant. Said he never meant for it to be permanent. Then I should have known better. Riven's heart sank. I've had alphas smile at me ever since, Cassiel whispered. Some wanted power. Some wanted to fix me. Some just wanted a thrill. But none of them ever stayed. He finally looked up. I'm not scared of you, Riven. I'm scared of Leo getting attached. Of me getting attached. And then losing everything. Again. Riven was quiet for a long time. Then he stepped forward slowly, stopping just a breath away. I'm not him, he said. And I don't plan on going anywhere. Cassiel looked at him, torn between his instinct to run and his want. Then stop pulling away, he whispered. And this time, when Riven reached for him, Cassiel let himself lean in. The next day, Cassiel woke up. For once, his body didn't feel like it was caught in a tug-of-war between instinct and fear. What was that smell? It smelled like coffee, eggs, warmth. Cassiel threw on a hoodie, still in pajama pants, and walked toward the kitchen. As he turned the corner, the sight nearly made him stop mid-step. Riven was there, sleeves pushed up, hair a mess from sleep, humming something low under his breath as he flipped pancakes on the stove. Leo was sitting on the counter beside him, legs swinging, watching like it was the most exciting thing in the world. Riven nudged Leo with his elbow. What's the rule if the pancake flips perfectly? Leo grinned. We get to toppings? Correct, Riven said dramatically, flipping and nailing it. Cassiel leaned against the wall, arms crossed, just watching for a second. There was something about the way Riven moved. It was casual, comfortable, like he'd always belonged in this house. Like Leo wasn't just his boss's son, but his kid too. Cassiel didn't even realize he was smiling. You're staring, Riven said without turning around. Cassiel stiffened. I'm not. You are, Riven smirked, glancing over his shoulder. It's fine. I look great in the morning. Cassiel rolled his eyes, but he couldn't quite suppress the small, stupid smile tugging at his lips. Daddy. Leo tilted his head from where he was sitting on the counter. Why are you smiling? I'm not, Cassiel said way too quickly. Leo narrowed his eyes. You are. And your ears are red. Cassiel turned away, coughing into his hand. Must be the heat still messing with me. Riven snorted behind him. Riven slid a plate in front of Leo, then passed one to Cassiel without meeting his eyes, though the corner of his mouth twitched just slightly when their fingers brushed. Cassiel sat down slowly. It was quiet for a few moments. Until Leo leaned in and whispered, not very quietly by the way, Riven smiles when you smile. Cassiel nearly choked on his coffee. Riven looked away, very focused on cutting Leo's pancakes. Traitor. Leo grinned, mouth full. I'm 3. I have no loyalty. Cassiel just stared at the both of them, utterly doomed, and kind of okay with it. After breakfast, Cassiel lingered. He had no reason to, but maybe he liked watching Riven move around the kitchen. Cassiel picked up a dish towel and walked to the sink. Cassiel leaned a little closer as they rinsed plates, drying one and handing it back. Riven looked at him, not teasing, just looking. Cassiel's hand stilled. Cass. Riven's voice dropped, something unspoken in the nickname. His eyes flicked down to Cassiel's lips, and Cassiel didn't move, didn't stop him. He leaned in. Their faces were inches apart, barely a breath between them. Are you gonna kiss? Leo asked excitedly. Cassiel jumped back like he'd touched fire. Riven coughed loudly and turned to grab a dishcloth that he absolutely didn't need. Leo leaned against the counter with his little arms crossed, grinning way too smugly for a 3-year-old kid. Aren't you supposed to be watching cartoons? Cassiel asked, blushing. I was. Then I came to ask for juice, but this is way better. Cassiel glared. Riven laughed awkwardly, and Leo gave them both a thumbs up before bouncing away. Cassiel refused to meet Riven's eyes for the rest of cleanup. 1 week later, they were at the park. The park was filled with the sound of kids playing. Cassiel sat on the bench, watching Leo and Riven race across the grass. Cassiel found himself smiling at the sight again, but the mood shifted when someone behind him called, far too familiar. Cassie? Cassiel stiffened. No one called him that. Not anymore. He turned slowly, and there he was. Vincent, Leo's biological father, looking exactly the same, too much cologne, and that stupid smug grin. Cassiel stood slowly, every muscle tight. What are you doing here? Vincent gave a dismissive shrug. It's a public park. Just came by to see my boy. You haven't called in over 3 years. I've been busy. He winked like that was some kind of excuse. Running my company, you know how it is. Cassiel's jaw clenched. He doesn't want to see you. Just then, Leo appeared, running back from the field with Riven trailing behind. As soon as he spotted Vincent, Leo slowed. His happy grin dropped. Vincent crouched with a forced smile. Hey little man. Leo looked at him. No thanks, he said flatly, then walked straight past him to Cassiel. Cassiel bent down, hand on Leo's shoulder. Do you want to go home? Leo nodded quickly, burying into Cassiel's side. Riven stepped up beside them then, calm but alert. The look in his eyes had changed. He eyed Vincent from head to toe, as if sizing him up. And then something subtle but electric shifted in the air. Vincent's smile faltered. Cassiel realized that Riven's alpha scent was overpowering Vincent's. It was protective and overwhelming, calm and controlled, but impossible to ignore. Vincent cleared his throat, stepping back just a little. Who's this? He muttered. Riven tilted his head slightly. The nanny, he said, and smiled. And the man who actually shows up. Vincent scoffed. Temporary help. Cute. Cassiel stepped forward now, calm but cold. You can leave, Vincent. Vincent held up his hands. Fine, fine. No need to get aggressive. Just wanted to check in. He turned, leaving the same way he came. Cassiel didn't watch him go. Riven stayed quiet until Vincent was fully out of sight. Only then did Cassiel exhale. Thanks, he said softly. You okay? Riven asked. Cassiel looked down at Leo, who was clinging to his side like a koala. He doesn't like him. Riven touched his shoulder lightly. Neither do I. Cassiel glanced up, surprised. Because he's a bad father. Yes. Riven's eyes locked with his. And because you deserve better. Cassiel blinked. That night, Leo had finally drifted off after a full evening of clinging to Cassiel's side like a baby koala. The encounter at the park had clearly shaken him, and Cassiel had done his best to reassure him. Cassiel stepped out of Leo's bedroom and closed the door gently behind him. He didn't expect Riven to be waiting right outside, leaning against the hallway wall with his arms crossed and a quiet look in his eyes. You okay? Riven asked softly. Cassiel gave a small nod. He's asleep, finally. Riven hesitated, then smiled. I made tea. Thanks, Cassiel murmured. Their eyes lingered. A silent agreement passed between them as Cassiel followed Riven down the dark hallway toward the living room. They didn't speak at first, just sat really close. Cassiel's arm brushed Riven's. Riven looked over at him, and Cassiel knew he was about to fold. Cassiel, Riven whispered, voice hoarse. I've wanted to do this for a while. Cassiel swallowed hard. Then do it. Riven leaned in slowly, giving him time to pull away. Cassiel didn't. Their lips met. Cassiel pulled him closer. Riven made a quiet groan against his mouth, hands moving to cup the sides of Cassiel's face like he was something precious. The kiss deepened, heated. Cassiel shifted, breath hitching as he ended up in Riven's lap, legs straddling his thighs without even thinking. His fingers tangled in Riven's hair. Riven trailed slow kisses down the side of his neck. Cass, Riven said, breathless, do you want this? Do you want me? Cassiel looked into Riven's eyes. His eyes were full of longing and sincerity, and Cassiel didn't feel the need to hide. Yes, he whispered. I want you. He pressed his forehead to Riven's, voice shaking. I want to be with you. Riven kissed him again, deeper this time, and Cassiel melted into him. The next morning, Cassiel stretched with a groan. He felt bare skin pressed against his back. A heavy arm was over his waist. He was in bed with Riven, and Riven was still very much shirtless. Morning, came Riven's sleepy voice, a little too close to his ear. Cassiel rolled over and blinked at him. You drooled on my pillow. Riven grinned, completely unashamed. You kissed me last night. So technically, you kissed the pillow too. Cassiel smacked his shoulder. You're insufferable. Yeah, but you still ended up in my arms, so who's really suffering? Cassiel tried to frown but failed. His face warmed instead, and he buried it halfway under the blanket. Don't flatter yourself. Riven leaned on one elbow. So, last night wasn't just a heat-of-the-moment thing, right? Cassiel narrowed his eyes. Is that a pun? Riven smirked. Depends. Do you want it to be? Cassiel groaned, rolling over to smack him with a pillow. You're disgusting. And yet, you're still naked next to me, Riven teased, touching the second pillow. Cassiel huffed, trying to hide his laugh. We are not doing this every morning. Riven caught his hand and held it gently. His tone shifted. But can I ask you something? Cassiel paused. Riven's eyes searched his. Do you actually want to be with me? I mean, really? Cassiel smiled honestly. Yeah, he said, I do. Riven leaned forward and kissed his forehead, surprisingly tender. Then it's official. You're mine now. Cassiel smirked. Only if you make coffee. Riven grinned. I'll grind the beans myself if it keeps you in this bed longer. Cassiel rolled his eyes. Shut up and go make coffee. Later that evening, Leo was bouncing on the couch with a bowl of popcorn. Pick a movie, he chanted, flopping between them. Cassiel glanced at Riven, lips twitching. After some arguing, Leo finally settled on a kid's animated adventure movie. 20 minutes in, he was buried under a blanket, too engrossed in the screen to notice anything else. Cassiel leaned into Riven's side, whispering, This is dangerously domestic. Riven smirked. Dangerously perfect, you mean? Cassiel rolled his eyes and nudged him. Stop being corny. No promises, Riven murmured, and before Cassiel could reply, he leaned over and pressed a soft, sneaky peck to his lips. Cassiel's ears went red. He elbowed Riven lightly. They sat like that, hands brushing under the blanket. Wait, Leo suddenly sat up, popcorn forgotten. Did you guys just kiss? Riven blinked. What? Cassiel froze. No. Leo gasped dramatically and sat up. You did. I saw it. Cassiel opened his mouth to say something, anything, but Leo was already scrambling onto the couch between them, grinning wide. I knew it. I so knew it. You like each other. This means I get to dad's now, right? Cassiel choked. Leo. Riven looked like he was trying not to laugh. Well, technically, yes. Leo threw popcorn in the air. Best movie night ever. Cassiel buried his face in his hands, muttering, I regret everything. Riven leaned in, grinning. I don't. Leo whispered loudly to Riven, You better kiss him again later when I'm not looking. Cassiel groaned louder, hiding his smile behind his hand. Family. It was chaotic. And perfect. It was a week later, and Cassiel had a visitor over. He was leaning over the kitchen counter, a tablet in hand, explaining something about upcoming partnerships to one of his senior marketing managers, a tall, polished beta named Felix. Felix smiled a little too long at Cassiel's mouth as he nodded. You always make the numbers so easy to understand. It's honestly impressive. Cassiel gave a polite chuckle, not picking up the tone. It's just a summary. Felix stepped slightly closer. Still, I wouldn't mind sitting through all your meetings if you're the one explaining things. From across the room, Riven, who had just walked in holding Leo's empty lunchbox, froze. His eyes narrowed. The alpha inside him definitely caught the interest in his tone. And the fact that Felix's gaze dipped again to Cassiel's neckline, that was enough. Cassiel glanced up and spotted Riven walking over. "Joe tight." "Hey," he said, surprised by Riven's sudden closeness. "Everything okay?" Riven slid an arm around Cassiel's waist. "Everything's great," he said pointedly, locking eyes with Felix. "Just thought I'd come say hi to my mate." Cassiel blinked. "You're what?" Felix's eyes widened slightly. Cassiel nearly choked, but Riven didn't let go, casually pressing a kiss to Cassiel's cheek. "I just wanted to ask about dinner plans. You want curry or steak tonight, babe?" Cassiel's face turned red. Felix quickly smiled and took a step back. "Oh right, okay. I'll send the summary to your inbox then." And just like that, he was gone. Cassiel stared at Riven. "Did you just call me your mate in front of my employee?" Riven leaned closer. "He was embracing you with his eyes." Cassiel snorted. He was not. He was this close to licking his lips. Cassiel narrowed his eyes. "Are you jealous?" Riven didn't flinch. "I am protective. There's a difference." Cassiel grinned, folding his arms. "Jealous? I will mark you in front of your entire boardroom next time," Riven warned. Cassiel laughed and walked off with a smug little sway in his hips. "Jealous and dramatic. Love that for you." That evening, Cassiel, Leo, and Riven were all in the living room. A kid-friendly movie still played quietly in the background, but Leo had long since dozed off with his head in Cassiel's lap. Cassiel ran his fingers gently through Leo's hair while Riven sat at the other end of the couch, one arm draped over the back behind Cassiel. Curiosity had been nagging at Cassiel for weeks, and now, with Leo asleep, he finally asked it. "Hey Riven." Riven glanced over, his voice low. Cassiel bit the inside of his cheek, then tilted his head. "Back when I was in heat, you didn't seem very affected." Riven blinked. Cassiel smirked. "Just a little. You didn't even look fazed." Riven laughed, but it was strained. "Cassiel," he said, turning fully toward him, "you have no idea." Cassiel blinked, caught off guard. "What?" Riven leaned in slightly, eyes flicking down at Leo to make sure he was still asleep before dropping his voice to a near whisper. "You think I wasn't affected? I had to take cold showers every day." "Sometimes more than once," Riven groaned under his breath, rubbing the back of his neck. "Your scent was everywhere. Every time I walked past your room I had to brace myself." Cassiel's lips parted in surprise. "You didn't act like it," Cassiel muttered, flustered now. "Because I was trying to respect your space," Riven whispered, "and also because I was this close to walking into your room and saying things that would have made you slap me." Cassiel choked back a laugh. "Like what?" Riven narrowed his eyes, heat flickering behind them. "I know. You don't get to make me say those things with your son on your lap." Cassiel blushed, gaze darting down to Leo. "Fair point." Riven smirked. "But just so we're clear, I was affected. I just spent a week pretending I wasn't so I wouldn't pin you to a wall." Cassiel's cheeks turned bright pink. "Okay, wow." Riven leaned in slowly, brushing a kiss to Cassiel's temple. "Next time you go into heat," he whispered, lips right by his ear, "you won't be alone." Cassiel shivered slightly, heart pounding. A year later, it had been almost a full year since the night Cassiel said yes to being Riven's boyfriend. Now, on a quiet summer morning, the three of them, Cassiel, Riven, and Leo, were hiking up a gentle trail in the countryside for a little weekend getaway. Leo was now 4 years old. He raced ahead with a tiny backpack full of snacks, shouting, "Last one to the top is a soggy potato." Cassiel was flushed and smiling as Riven held his hand, steadying him when the path got steep. They reached the clearing at the top of the hill, a quiet spot with a beautiful view. Cassiel sat on the blanket they'd laid out for a picnic, sipping water, when Riven suddenly got down on one knee. Cassiel blinked. "Wait, what are you doing?" Leo shouted to Riven. "Dad, do it." Riven pulled out a small velvet box and opened it. Inside was a sleek, silver ring with a tiny engraved star. Leo's idea. Cassiel stared at it. Cassiel, Riven said, I know you didn't plan on falling for an alpha, and I know trust hasn't come easy. But I want to be yours, I already am. And I want to build every morning, every movie night, every wild Leo-filled day with you. Cassiel swallowed. You're really proposing to me with Leo screaming in the background. I figured it was perfect. Cassiel laughed, then cried, and then tackled Riven into a hug. Yes, idiot, he said into his neck. Of course yes. Leo ran down the hill yelling, Are we married now? Do I get to wear a tux? It was the night after their wedding. It was just them now. They were officially married, rings shining on their fingers, and Leo was back home with Cassiel's mom for the week. Now, they were here, in a private villa in southern Italy, sunlight spilling through white curtains, and nothing to distract them but the ocean breeze and each other. Cassiel was on the wide bed scrolling through his phone, wearing only Riven's button-down shirt, bare legs tangled in the white sheets. His hair was slightly messy from the wind outside and his cheeks were flushed. Riven walked in from the balcony, towel slung around his neck, shirtless and still damp from a swim. He froze for half a second at the sight of his Omega on the bed, legs exposed. Cassiel arched a brow. You're staring. Riven grinned and tossed the towel. I'm allowed. You're my husband now. Cassiel smirked, eyes twinkling. Can't argue with that. He sat up, his shirt riding up, and patted the spot beside him. Come here, Alpha. Riven crawled onto the bed and leaned in, brushing his lips lightly against Cassiel's. You smell like you're close. Cassiel's breath hitched. I'm not in heat, he whispered, but yes, I'm close. Their lips crashed together. It was soft and patient. Riven pulled him into his lap as the ocean breeze fluttered around them. You always smell so sweet, Riven muttered into Cassiel's neck. So good for me. Cassiel's head fell back, letting Riven kiss his throat. Then have me, Alpha. And he did. Hours later, the two lay tangled together. Cassiel lay on Riven's chest, lazily drawing circles with his fingers. When they returned, Leo ran out of the house with glitter all over his face. You're back, he screamed, tackling them both into a hug. Did you kiss in Italy? Did you do married things? Did you bring me pasta? Cassiel and Riven exchanged a look and laughed. Cassiel ruffled Leo's hair. We brought you souvenirs. Leo beamed. Cassiel felt completely safe, loved, and at home. The end.